जिंदा खुदा से दिल जो लगाते तो खूब था,
जिंदा खुदा से दिल जो लगाते तो खूब था।
मुर्दा बुतों से जान, मुर्दा बुतों से जान छुड़ाते तो खूब था.
Assalamu alaikum. I think let's begin. Can I request Sabahat Aman Ahmed for the tilawat, please?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. فبظلم من الذين هادوا حرمنا عليهم طيبات أحلت لهم وبصدهم عن سبيل الله كثيرا وأخذهم الربا وقد نهوا عنه وأكلهم أموال الناس بالباطل وأعتدنا للكافرين منهم عذابا أليما. The translation of the verses recited before you is as follows. I seek refuge with Allah from Satan the accursed. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, ever merciful. So, because of the transgression of the Jews, we forbade them pure things which had been allowed to them, and also because of their hindering many men from the way of Allah, from Allah's way, and because of their taking interest, although they had been forbidden it, and because of their devouring people's wealth wrongfully. And we have prepared for those of them who disbelieve a painful punishment. Jazakallah.
Okay, Jazakallah. And that nicely brings us on to today's topic, which is why does Islam forbid the use of interest? Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu. Amma ba'du, fa'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Now, this is a subject which I'm not an expert in, so maybe there might be some bankers or accountants who might know a bit more. Anyway, they will get their chance as usual in the comments and questions. So, why does Islam forbid the use of interest? The Quran relates in chapter 2, verse 276. Those who devour interest do not rise except as rises one whom Shaitan has smitten with insanity. That is because they say, trade also is like interest, whereas Allah has made trade lawful and made interest unlawful. So he to whom an admonition has come from his Lord, and he desists, then will that which he received in the past be his, and his affair is with Allah. And those who revert to it, they are the inmates of the fire. Therein shall they abide. The next verse says, Allah abolishes interest and causes charity to increase. And Allah loves not anyone who is a confirmed disbeliever and an arch sinner. The next verse, surely those who believe and do good deeds and observe prayer and pay the zakat shall have their reward from their Lord, and no fear shall come on them, nor shall they grieve. In the next verse, O ye who believe, fear Allah and relinquish what remains of interest, if you are believers. And the next verse, but if you do it not, then beware of war from Allah and his messenger. And if you repent, then you shall have your original sons. Thus you shall not be wronged, nor shall you thus you shall not wrong, nor shall you be wronged. The next verse, and if any debtor be in straitened circumstances, then grant him respite till a time of ease, and that you remit it as charity shall be better for you, if only you knew. And the next verse, and fear the day when you shall be made to return to Allah, then shall every soul be paid in full for what it has earned, and they shall not be wronged. Now, these verses, to sum up, we have in here some of the points. But one thing which we need to understand is that the whole world's banking system is riba based. Allah has described riba as a form of wrongdoing, and dealing in riba is like going to war with Allah. Taking or giving riba is among the major sins. The harm of riba outweighs the good. Riba promotes inequality and hurts the poor. Islamic banking systems provides an alternative to riba. So what is interest? The word used in connection with interest in the Quran is riba, the meaning and understanding of which is not identical with that of the word interest as commonly understood. Riba is prohibited because it tends to draw wealth into the hands of a small circle and to restrict the exercise of beneficence towards one's fellow beings. In a case of loans which bear interest, the lender is in effect takes advantage of and makes profit from the need and distress of others. Now, this is the main thing which we understand about interest, of course, that you tend to be only paying back the interest and not the actual loan that you originally borrowed. So this is why Islam is against it. And this is why there's so much danger, because you tend to only be paying back the interest. And so you're getting further and further in debt. So then how can we avoid interest? And this is the main problem in these days, because everything is somehow connected to interest. If there's a financial crash in America, it will affect Europe and Japan, etc. Because now it's a global village. The whole world is connected through the internet. And this is the problem now. It's no longer isolated one country. Now we're all connected and we're all involved in interest. So this is the system that we're living in, and this is a system that the West adopts. Now, for the Islamic system to work, then you have to be completely independent of these systems and deal in markets which are interest-free. This is what happened in the early Islam. But how can we do it in these days? The whole system would have to change. So as I said, everything is connected now. It's not like in the times of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, where what you spent was only for that particular country, for that particular town, in fact. Now everything is online, everything is connected, and everything has interest involved. So you may not be able to not get involved in interest living in the West. This is the problem, and I don't see how you can't get involved in interest. Now, in Islamic countries, Muslim countries, and you're in the Midlands, in Birmingham, you have banks, Islamic banks, and they say profit or loss. But even when I was in Birmingham, I went to that bank, that maybe there's more now, but when it first opened, the Islamic Bank, and put this question to them, what do you mean by profit and loss? Because it still involves interest. And the question that I posed them, that, okay, if you're not involving interest, where do you invest your money? Because all banks, they invest the money in shares, and the share system involves interest. And they had to admit that the profit and loss, is also involved in the shares. That's where they make the money. Of course, they make the money through that. So even though they call it profit and loss, obviously there is still some involvement in the shares and things like this. At the end of the day, whatever bank you go to, every bank, even bills and societies, they're all involved in profit and loss. Of course they are. You give them your money to look after. Then what do they do with that? They invest that money in safe shares. But of course, it's a risk and it could fail. The bank could go bankrupt. The bank will close. That is the loss. Normally, they're very clever. They make sure that they are very safe shares, and so you will get the profit. But at the end of the day, every bank, no bank can guarantee that it's always going to be a profit. Normally it is, but sometimes there could be a loss. So the Islamic system has just taken this and using profit and loss and keeping away from the word interest to try to justify why they're doing it. But once you get into that stock exchange, then as I said, you're involving yourself in un-Islamic practices. So what can a Muslim then do? And all we can really do is try to keep the interest to a minimum. For instance, if you go for a savings account, then definitely you'll be involved in interest. That's the whole purpose of a savings account. Whatever you put in, then they will start charging you or making interest for you. And so your money increases. But if you have a current account, then you do not get involved in interest. Of course, if you go in debt, you may be charged interest. But if you keep yourself out of debt, then you will not be involved in interest. You won't be making money, of course. And there's the other thing, that money, if you've got £5 a day, you spend £5 on sweets, for instance, you wouldn't be able to do that in a year's time. There's inflation. And of course, that's the problem with money, that what you can buy at one time, you may not be able to buy at another time. So you lose that, obviously, in a current account, but you will keep away from interest. So that's one way. But since, of course, there's no real alternative system, then if you want a bank account, you have to be in one of these. Like I say, current account is the one that we would suggest. It's more away from the interest. Now, again, many people get mortgage. So if you get a mortgage for your house or you buy a shop, etc., what can you do? Because again, you're going to get into this interest. Now, there's not really an alternative for that. But what Hazur has stressed on this is that if it's for personal use, if it's your house, okay, we can overlook that. But if it's a business, if you're buying many houses, like many people do, that they buy a house and then put that up for rent to make money and so on and so forth. If you're getting a mortgage for that, or you're getting more shops and you're getting mortgage from that, then you're purposely getting loans, which is going to have interest involved. So Azur says, try to avoid that. Yes, okay, you may get a mortgage for your shop or for your house where you're living in, but for business and things like that, try to avoid that. Of course, if you've got the money, that's a different thing. If you don't have to get a mortgage on loans and things like that, that's fine. Otherwise, as I said, the advice is to try to keep it to a minimum. And that's all we can suggest. Because sometimes people are just doing it as a means of show. They expand the business as a means of show. They show they've got many houses as a means of show and so on and so forth. Yes, it's a way of making money. Of course, it's a way of making money. But as a Muslim, we've got to try to somehow avoid interest as much as possible. Now, Islamic banking, I've already mentioned this. Today, Islamic banking is just a start, a small step to create an alternative to mainstream conventional banking. Islamic banking is an attempt to help people come out of absolute haram. But as I said, it's far away from the true and ideal Islamic financial system. Now, some Islamic banks, they will give a loan interest-free. Alhamdulillah, if they're doing that, then that's fine. But of course, you've got to bear in mind that that bank still is making money. It has to make money. That's the whole purpose of the bank. And that is through the shares. Generally, Islamic banking products are designed to comply with the form of Sharia, but not necessarily its spirit. And this is what I am saying. It's there. They're saying we'll give you a loan, but if you go deeper, then it's not really covering the spirit of Islam. A second generation of Islamic banking products is needed based on real sharing of risk and return. To move from Sharia compliance to Sharia-based or Sharia-driven products, today's Islamic banking does not fulfill the objectives of the Sharia. It's a start, but it's not an end. As I said, it's difficult. We understand in the present climate, as I said, everything is connected, and to get like the early days, that's not around, even in Muslim countries. But they are trying, at least they're trying to come away from some forms of interest. Now, the stock market, I've mentioned about this as well. Can we use the stock market? Now, we need to understand there are two types of stock. The first type is to invest in the stock market to gain money. So you buy shares, you get them at a low price. When it goes up, then of course you sell the shares. The problem with this is that you're worrying about making money. You're not caring about the business or the effect that you had if you sell those shares. And of course, by selling those shares, that can lead to a business to crash. And it often happens that a business starts going down, people quickly sell the shares, and it just makes it go even further into trouble. So this, if we look at it, it's really about greed. It's about making money. You don't care about the consequences of what you're doing. All you care about is making money. The second type of stocks is when you invest in the business to help the business. Maybe your friend comes to you and says, I want to open up a corner shop or whatever. I need some money. Can you help me? Now you care about that business. You're part of it. You're a share owner of that business. You're not worrying about the profit. Of course, you want it to be successful, but you're trying to make that shop or whatever it is successful. This becomes trade. This is a good way of investing the money. Now, Islam, of course, the whole purpose of Islam is try to make money flow. It doesn't like people hoarding money in banks and under your bed or wherever you hoard the money. If you hoard it, of course, there is a system of zakat, and that is a tax on your money, property, and things like this, which you do not use over a period of 1 year, and you're above the nisab. Nisab means the minimum level. So it's not for everyone. It's only for those people that have savings, which they're not touching for 1 year and are above the nisab. Now, these days, I might be mentioning it a bit later, but you can go online on chanda.org. There is a wonderful system of working out whether you have to pay zakat or not. It calculates the zakat for you. If you're using your money, then this you're investing it or whatever, you're making it into the business or you're spending it all the time. This is what Islam wants. So it wants you to be using that money in whatever way. And sometimes you make business profit, sometimes you make loss. As I said, with early Islam, people would give business people money to use it, and they would share in the profits, or it's a loss. For instance, Imam Abu Hanifa, you may have heard of him, people used to leave money with him and say, for God's sake, employ it and let us share the profit. He was such a good businessman that people would just give him money and say, don't care how you use it, just use it. If you make a profit, which of course normally he did, then give us a share of that profit. But with such things, of course, trust is always needed. The Holy Prophet, again, was an example of how he went on one of these caravans to Syria, and alhamdulillah, he made a profit. But it's trust. You're relying on the person, whether he does the business properly or not. He may make a loss. So are there any alternative systems? The Jamaat will try to help people in need, if people want to get married, students, etc. But of course, we understand funds are limited. It's your money after all, and they are trying to help with that. And so they will ask you to pay back in a fixed time period. So they will set a fixed time period for you to pay back. But as the Quran says, if you need more time, then they will try to allow more time. They won't charge interest. But again, as I mentioned before, there's inflation. We should understand that. So if you want to pay a little bit more, then alhamdulillah, that's good. But they can't ask for you to pay more because then that becomes interest. So that's up to you. Either you pay back the debt or you pay back the debt and you give a little bit more. There's a system which in this country is known as a co-op system. Now, you may know this system under a different name, but the idea is that people will collect a certain amount each month and put it into a pot. And then one person from that group will take some money. So if they, for instance, need a wedding or they want to go on holiday or something, and when it comes to their turn, they will get their share from that pot. And this is a system that many Muslims, or not many, but some Muslims do. The problem is, again, it requires trust. It's been known that sometimes we run off with the pot and things like this. So if you're trustworthy, this is the downfall for it. But that's one way people try to help as well. Otherwise, the Jamaat is looking into finding a good alternative system, inshallah. One that obviously is based on trust and not greed. So we're still looking into this. Azur is also looking into mortgages, how possible we can do that. At one time, I don't know if it's still going on, they did this, what was that program, where you get the Dragon's Den sort of situation. They're looking in ways in which they can help. But obviously, they're looking at what is allowed in Islam and try to help as best as possible. Okay, so as I said, I'm not an expert, but I'll try to answer questions, or maybe there's someone who is more of an expert than me who can answer questions. So if anybody's got any questions or comments, or is there any chats, now is your opportunity.
Assalamu alaikum, Rabbi Sahab. We got two questions in chat. The first question is, what is riba?
Can I explain that?
Yeah.
Did that come early, or has it been explained?
I think this come a bit early. So you have explained this one.
Right, okay. What's the second question?
Yeah. The second question is, are Muslims allowed to buy share on the stock market, or does it count as a riba?
Okay, I think maybe these questions have come before the message, the talk finished.
Yeah, the discussion,
so if they still want to ask, then by all means they can ask and we'll go through it again. But I think both these questions has been covered. So anybody else want to say anything, or is there any more chats?
Yeah, Assalamu alaikum, Rabbi Sahab.
Jiha, yes.
Yeah, I've got a question. So you said how people used to give their money to Imam Abu Hanifa, and if there was a profit, they'll take the profit. If there was a loss, then so be it. But then, essentially, the investing. So how is that different from investing into a stock? Because either way, you're still investing into a company, and you're taking profit if you have profit, and if you've got a loss, then you've got the loss.
Of course, but I mean, he's doing business. He is going and doing business just like you'd go to a shop worker, a person who sells things in a shop. He's doing business. So, I mean, what Abu Hanifa was doing was generally going to the markets as they do there, buying stuff and then selling. You know, Mecca was a market town. And so this is why, in fact, even the Holy Prophet Muhammad went to Syria, that he would go buy goods and then come back and sell it in the market. So this is normal business. Now, from what money they make from that, that's what would be given back to the people who had given him some money to invest in that business. So as I said, that type of shares is fine because you're dealing with trade. Your business, it's business. It can work, it can't work. If you've got cars, you buy a car, you try to sell it at a better profit. Sometimes it doesn't work, but most times it does work. Depends on how well you know it. So if you know a good businessman who is successful in his business, then of course by giving him some money to invest, buying a car or whatever he wants to do, that's fine. That's trade. But as I said, with the stock market, there's two types. So there's that one where it's involving trade. You are interested in the business or there's just simply buying the shares and selling the shares and not caring about what effect it has. So, for instance, if you buy shares into a company and then suddenly you've got a pandemic and that company goes bust, you're going to lose all those shares. And of course, there was, or it's happened quite a few times where there's been a crash in the market and people have invested in these shares and suddenly, bam, the market goes straight down, you lose all your money. So that is not caring about the business. And so that's what I'm saying. It's a question of the spirit behind the law that you just after money, you're just after greed as such, and you don't care about the consequences it has on the business. A person may be trying to do well in his shop, but he has gone on the market. Let's say, for instance, the football clubs these days, many football clubs go into the share market. You can buy shares into your football team and so on and so forth. So that's a way for them to make money. But if they have bought some players and messed up and the players are no good and they've lost money and they're in financial trouble and so on and so forth, and you pull out your shares, you're just going to send that club into even further trouble. So this is the consequence of the stock market, that you don't care about what the shares are, who they're for, whatever it is. All you care about is whether it's going up or whether it's going down. And that, as I said, is a form of greed. So that's the main difference with the stock market. There are people who do invest in the stock market, but generally we discourage that and say no because of this, unless it is in a business where you care about that business. I hope that's explained it. Anybody else?
Assalamu alaikum.
Yes, whoever.
Assalamu alaikum, Ravi Sahab. There is a question in chat. What about cryptocurrency? Can we buy that?
Sorry, what? The what?
Cryptocurrency.
I have got no idea what that is. So if you can explain what it is, then maybe. This is the problem. So I don't know much about these sorts of banking things. So what is crypto? I know crypto night is what is bringing weakness to Superman, but I'm sure it's not that. Gee, yes, please.
I'm asking about Bitcoin. Basically, it's a
right, yes.
cryptocurrency. So can we buy that? Is it safe to buy?
I don't know too much about it. It's not real money; it's computer money or something. How does it work?
It's about kind of real money, but we can only buy it on computer. We cannot own any notes or any type of paper money. It goes up and down. Its values fluctuates a lot.
And what do you do with it? What if you buy this money? How are you spending it then? Or are you buying things with it, or you're just trying to invest?
It's kind of like shares right now. We cannot buy things from that, but we can, we can invest in that one. And if the rates goes up, then we can take out our money having profit. It's like that.
So how does it go up? What do they do with it?
I don't know. I don't know on the other hand what is going on, but its values fluctuates a lot. One time it is like 21,000, another time it is like 30,000 pounds.
Okay. I don't know. It's no point me saying because it needs investigating, and I'm not really sure what is that. So I don't want to misadvise you. It doesn't. It sounds more like shares, but without looking deeper into it, I should imagine it sounds like they are again investing the money and so on and so forth. So it's just another way of buying shares by the sound of it. But without looking at it properly, it's best not to comment on it. So unless anybody else knows anything about this that they may want to comment on. Okay, so
I have a question.
Right, yes, please.
It's about the government scheme which was launched a while back on getting your first home helped by ISA. That's like a government scheme that they pay towards your legal fees when you make the first purchase on your mortgage or your house, and they charge you. They give you interest every month. So they don't charge you; they give you interest every month. What is your uptake on that?
What do you mean they give you interest?
Well, they give you a certain percentage every month into your account. So if you got, for example, if you got a certain amount in your bank, they give you like £9-10 every month.
Okay. Again, without looking into this properly, it's not really for me to say. Generally, if you're paying rent, obviously you're paying a rent if you want to buy that yourself. And this is where mortgage and things like that comes in. So it's better to own the house yourself than obviously renting all the time and not having anything there. But some people like to rent, you know, I mean, some people, instead of buying their car, they like to rent the car, because then after a few years, they take back the car, they give you a new car, and so on and so forth. So there are pros and cons. Now, this, like I say, how they give, why they're giving you money, I'm not really quite clear on that. So again, I think all these sorts of questions, they need to be looked into properly by experts in the field. And as I said, I'm not an expert. I don't really care much about money. So I'm really not too much knowing about these sorts of things. Like I say, I don't know why they would give you money. That seems strange that they want to give you money. There must be some sort of catch, I would have thought. But anyway, okay, Zaid, you want to say something?
Yes, Marbsa, assalamu alaikum. Marbsa, I just wanted to ask, as you just touched upon mortgage, just a bit more maybe clarity on, you know, a lot of obviously the mortgages, if you get a mortgage, they're over £100,000 and so on. You know, a general person, normal person, you know, cannot afford or pay something like that in one lump sum. So what is kind of Islamic kind of point of view on when taking mortgages, and are we allowed to take them, or, you know, Jazakallah.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, Azur's advised that whilst it's involving interest, of course, we understand that, you know, you want to buy the houses, and that rather than paying the rent, buying the house is much better. So if it's your house and this is your first mortgage, then, okay, it's not great, but we can understand it. If it's your first shop, okay, it's fine. But if then you want to buy another house, a second house, third house, some people have 4, 5, 6 houses, or even more. So if you are having the money, then that's not a problem. But if you're borrowing and getting a mortgage every time, this is what Azur said is not good practice. So for one, okay, we can overlook that maybe. But for 2, 3, and 4, you are purposely getting involved in more and more interest. Of course, there comes a time, like if you've got a shop, you want to expand the shop and so on and so forth. But again, as I said, there's limits. To go to extreme big beautiful house or big beautiful shop which you can't afford, it's better to, you know, be able to afford it. So generally, Zura said that yes, we understand that some people do have to get mortgage, but there should be limitations. It shouldn't be going to excess, and this is what he's trying to discourage. At the end of the day, it's between you and Allah, of course. I'll give you the quotes in the beginning, but one mortgage is fine. But when some people got 3, 4, 5, 6 mortgages, then that is really just abusing the allowance that we sort of are giving as such. But Azur has been looking into this. I know he's been looking into this. It's a deep subject, and he's getting scholars and looking deep into the pros and cons to try to see how we can advise members. But at this stage, as far as I know, the only advice that I'm aware of is that Azur said keep it limited. So if that helps, but anyway.
Jazakallah, Marbsa. That does. Jazakallah.
There is another question. In fact, I got quite a few questions. What is forex trading? Are we allowed to do that?
I have no idea. What is it?
Yeah, I don't.
What is it? Do you know?
No, I don't have any idea.
I did search it just number Busaf. It's foreign exchange currency, so basically trading in that.
Foreign exchange, where you buy some foreign exchange money and then you sell it.
I presume so.
I mean, again, as an investment, I don't know if that's good or not. But I mean, what can I say? Sometimes you have to buy foreign exchange if you're going abroad. And of course, you know, that you usually have to buy at high amounts, and usually when you sell, you get a low amount. So I don't know how that is becoming a means of making money. I suppose if you see a country in trouble and it's quite cheap to buy. I remember when I went to Slovenia, when we went to Bosnia, it was paper money. We had paper pouring in our pockets, which was hardly worth anything. And then buying it when it's low and then selling it when it's high. Well, I don't know. It's money. Whether that would affect the country could be, again, like I say, it needs looking into. I'm not the person to advise in this because I don't know anything about these things. It needs to be looked into properly. What are the pros? What are the cons? Is it involving interest and so on and so forth? So I really, again, I can't really advise on such things. This is why this question, I mean, it was raised, but obviously I can only give you a certain bit because I'm not an expert in this particular field. You need to go to financial wizards who can advise you on such things. But anyway, I'm trying to give you a basic idea about interest. So sorry, I can't really help you again on that one. You need to take it further, either right to Azur or maybe Sultan Loan, the financial secretary. He might be able to advise you on such things. Any other?
Jazakallah, Rabbi. Next two questions are similar type of questions, like so the question is, can we purchase prize bonds as it is as they are used in Pakistan and other Muslim countries as well? Isn't like they are lottery type of thing?
Okay, well, lottery is gambling. So is this prize bonds also gambling? Again, I don't really know what prize bonds are, but generally the lottery that we have in this country, so maybe that will help because I don't know what happened in Pakistan. But the lottery, generally what gambling is that if you buy something where you're taking a risk in the hope to gain more, then that's a form of gambling. So for a lottery ticket, if you buy a lottery ticket, I don't know how much they cost these days, £1 or whatever it is, and you want to win £1 million, but you're taking that risk, that gamble. So that's gambling and that's forbidden. So I don't know what these prize bonds are, but if it's the same as a lottery system, the lottery system in this country is haram.
Rabbi, in prize bond, the amount that a person has invested is secure, and then on the top of that they run a lottery type of thing on that investment, and they announce the winners. I don't know that how they are operating like.
Okay. In this country, we have what is it called? Premium bonds. Maybe it's the same as that. With a premium bond, if you, for instance, pay £5, you get this premium bond. So that's yours. You put into the bank is £5. You can bring that £5 at any time. But then, I don't know if it still goes on these days, but when it was in the early days, they used to do it. They used to get the numbers of the premium bonds, and every month they would do this sort of raffling, and certain people could win prizes from that. Now, whether that's it's not interest, because obviously you are buying something for £5, so you've got that thing for still £5, and at any point you bring it out for £5. It's what happens next. Now, I presume again that they will be investing that, and that's how they make their money. But whether it is allowed or not, again, I think you need to ask the centre. So I don't know for sure, but it sounds, I mean, you're not going to lose a £5 because if that's the prize bond or premium bond, that is always going to be there. So you can always bring it out there. You're not going to get inflation, of course. You're going to get £5 that you bought this year. If you bring it out 20 years later, even though it might be worthless now, it's still going to be the same amount. So in that sort of sense, you're not taking any risks at all. It's other people who are then using that premium bond, or prize bond, or whatever it is, and putting it into the system. So it sounds okay to me, but I'm not a judge. I can't really know for sure. It's like this. What's that program? Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Now they don't do it nowadays, but in the early days, the first question was for £1,000. So that wasn't yours, and you could, it's a competition. You got £1,000, but then after you are playing for that money. That £1,000 then becomes yours. So when it moves up to, I don't know what the next level is, 2,000, you're now risking that 1,000 to gain 2,000. That then becomes gambling. So the first question is not gambling, but then after it becomes gambling. So in this case, it doesn't sound like that they're just utilizing what you've got. But like I say, it needs to be looked into properly to see whether it is allowed or not in Islam.
Jazakallah, Ravi Sahib. Ravi Sahib, we have last question in chat. I will raise this. So can we finance a car if we cannot afford to pay the full amount?
Yeah, as I said, many people do this. It's just the same as renting a car. But of course, the thing is that you're paying interest. You know you're paying interest. So the value of the car, let's say if you bought it outright at, let's say, £2,000, if you finance it, you'll be paying £2,500 or more, whatever the thing is. So that's the problem with financing. And obviously, people want to get good things. It's the same if you buy a TV or anything on interest. You're paying, like I say, the interest. That's the problem. And this is what is discouraged in Islam, that you should buy something for its actual value and not the interest, because then you end up paying more and more. And with finance cars, for instance, you could lose a car because you're not keeping up with the payments and so on and so forth. So it's something, again, which we discourage because, like I say, you're not paying for the car, you're paying for the car plus interest, which is what you're trying to avoid. But obviously, people do buy cars, TVs, whatever it is on the never never, as they say, and they end up paying a lot of interest. And now they're starting to suffer from this in this country, because these credit cards and things like this, or debit cards, people were buying all these things on credit. And so they were buying these things, buy now, pay later. But the problem is you still got to pay later. And that's caught up in this country, that people, even before this present pandemic has happened, even then the problems were affecting the country because there was so much money being outstanding, which hadn't been paid back, that it was affecting even the country. So at the end of the day, you've got to pay it back. It's not for free. Whatever you get, even though it might say buy now, pay later, you still have to pay it back. So ideally, whenever you're buying something, it's good to have the money in your hand. In the early days when I was young, you didn't have this system. You wouldn't buy on credit. You bought things that you could afford. And if you couldn't afford it, you didn't get it. It was easy as that. But now, again, the whole system has changed. And now it's all about buying now, paying later. And that means that you're going to get more and more in debt. And that's why a lot of people are getting in financial trouble, are getting bankrupt and so on and so forth, because of this interest that they're paying. They're not paying for the thing, they're paying for the thing plus the interest. And it's the interest which is killing them. So that's what's trying to be avoided in Islam, that you keep away from that interest. And that's the real sort of interest that we see, where you are paying for the thing plus more. And it's that plus more that causes the problems. So this is, like I say, in this country in particular, but most countries now, it's caught up with them. And people are getting in a great financial debt. Now, of course, this pandemic has made things even far, far worse, because people are losing jobs and things like that. But even before this pandemic, that was catching up with the people and it was causing problems. So we don't encourage that. That is the worst form of interest. Anybody else?
Jazakallah, Ravi Sahib. There are a few comments, but they are again, related to the premium bonds. You have already explained that. So there's no more question.
As I said, I mean, I don't know for sure about these things. If you need further guidance, either write to Azur, or if you don't want to write to Azur, I would contact the financial secretary, Sultan Loan Saab, and he can advise you as to what is Islamic and what isn't. As I said, this is not really my field. I'm just winging it because that was a subject that was brought for today. So I hope, anyway, I've given you some idea. But if you really want to know, please seek the answer from those that are qualified in this. Okay, so has anybody else got anything they want to say, or should we finish it there? How's the time? Yeah, 8 o'clock. So should we finish it there? Okay.
Yes, please, Brother Sab. Sorry.
So as I said, if you've got any topics like this one was brought that they want to talk about interest, anything you want to talk about, we'll try our best to explain for you. So please let Zaid or Toby or Abir, anybody like that, know what topics are, and we'll try and do that in coming weeks. Okay, please join me in silent prayers. Okay, Bismillah. I'm sorry, Amin. Assalamu alaikum.